Joining us now to discuss the past week in politics is host of the WGN Political Report, Paul Lisnek. Good to have you.
Hey guys,
Paul.
another busy week.
Yeah, I want to start off with this late word that the DOJ is investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey over ICE action while the threat of the Insurrection Act is still present.
Well, you can add their pictures and names to a list of about 16 Democrats that the Trump administration is going after. It's essentially a political effort. But let me take a step back, because obviously our viewers that are Trump supporters are saying, no, because I heard Walz say that you got to protest, you've got to. Absolutely everything they've done is protected by the First Amendment. It's pretty clear. And so while they will, and by the way, they're not charged with anything, they're just investigating, but I think clearly it's to try and get them to stop doing what they're doing. They're not getting in the way of cops, they're not getting in the way of ICE. They basically are telling people of their rights and what they can do and take a record, and that is just lawyer hat on. First Amendment protection, it will go away eventually.
And right the Insurrection Act still, I mean, President Trump seemed to pull back a little bit, but it's still there.
Well, listen, he's talked about the Insurrection Act for a very long time. It's almost a sense, you remember back in that day when there was a protest, the day that he was holding the Bible upside down. And it was reported that he had said, can't we shoot these protesters in the legs or something like that. So the fact that he talks about insurrection, it's clearly something he's not afraid of doing, and he very well might. But here's the concern. A lot of people say, well, we've already had the National Guard out, so if he calls the Insurrection Act, then they'll just come back. That won't be for the National Guard. That will be for the Army. That will be for military forces. And I just don't even want to think about what that scene looks like, because if there's any group who are not trained to handle these kinds of situations we're seeing on the streets, it's certainly the military that is trained to be doing different kinds of combat. But anyway, so some are saying he'll never do it. My sense is I think he just very well might eventually.
The president joked that he was going to cancel the midterms. Caroline Leavitt, his press secretary, said it was just a joke.
Well, we'll never know because we didn't see it. It was a written thing, so we didn't hear the way he said it. Here's the bottom line, Micah. Whether he was kidding or whether he was not kidding, he can't cancel the elections. Elections are run by the states. Now, I will say it is possible that if he says elections are canceled and declares it, maybe some red states, very Trump-supporting states, will choose to cancel them as a state. That would be a mistake because if
Can they do that, though, constitutionally?
Well, it depends now on their state constitution and what those rules would allow. Okay. But again, if they're red states and they have Republicans, why would they want to cancel them if you're going to send more? Now well, who knows? It's unclear, but who's going to go to Congress to represent you? And blue states, they're not going to cancel them because, once again, those states will proceed. So whether he was kidding, whether he's not, it doesn't matter. There will be elections.
Well, they weren't kidding about this, and it's raised a lot of flags. The FBI raided the home of a Washington Post reporter. They were trying to track down the source of a White House leak, but that goes against norms and traditions, and this is, many believe, going into dangerous territory.
Well, we know the press is under a lot of pressure from this administration anyways. First of all, the fact that the FBI showed up at this reporter's home, and look, that is not the way things are done. I've said on our air several times, I worked with the DOJ for 20 years, training them and being ready. I understand how they do things. And what they do here is they give a subpoena. So before the FBI shows up and starts taking things, that's in many ways a political move. The DOJ says, we need these things. Here's a list. And they have that reporter turn things over. They skipped that step and just went in. But here's the other thing. Even if she had published confidential or classified information, there's actually nothing illegal about doing that. So they have said she's not a target, and it may just be that they went in and took their stuff for whatever else they're doing, but more normal procedure would have been a subpoena, demand, or request that they turn it over.
This has been confusing. I mean, the mental health funding has gone back and forth and back and forth. So where do we stand now?
Well, where we stand right this minute, it can change. But here's what we know, is that the reason that it keeps going away is because the Trump administration says we're cutting it off. You know, he's also said we're cutting off funding to sanctuary cities as of February 1st. Lots of funds are being cut off. The problem is Congress controls the purse strings. If Congress had a spine, if we had a Congress, they might stand up. And by the way, this is not for people who are Trump supporters, whatever. I don't care which side of the fence you're on for this one, because trust me, if there were a Democratic president cutting off funding for things that president didn't like, people would be going bananas. Congress controls the purse strings. But because they won't stand up to this particular president, there's nothing that gets in the way of stopping him with everything he's doing. Now, lawsuits get filed, and those efforts will happen, but those efforts take time.
Why aren't they standing up to him?
Well, I think they're afraid. I think the bottom line is with primaries coming up, he's made it very clear that I will be sure you're primaried by somebody more MAGA, and then your job is done. And let's be honest, most people in Congress are more concerned about their own jobs, perhaps, than sometimes standing up, for what is just truly right. Look, we just had the war provision was about to pass, which would have limited what the president did in Venezuela. I might be jumping here on our topics, but that's because 2 Republican senators who were all ready to vote for the War Powers Act. Yeah. Yes. They said, no, you know what? I'm going to turn. I've been made promises by the administration. So even those, folks
he really
on Trump's
came
side,
down on them, though, too, didn't he?
Well, that's it. And I think, but that's why it's an answer to your question. A lot of the Republicans are just terrified of what Trump or the administration will do to them, and usually it's about elections and primary. But also about MAGA supporters. They get threats, they get phone calls. As soon as he says something bad about somebody, and you see a lot of, certainly some of the Democrats, Alyssa Slotkin, she's been on there and having to report saying, I now have to get protection for my kids and for my parents. There's, threats coming from over the place, and that's the problem.
They get subpoenaed, they get doxxed.
Absolutely. It's like the president doesn't know or doesn't realize the power of his words and how it signals to other people.
President's words. He's been using Greenland a lot, but lately his language has gotten more serious, and now there's discussion of tariffs. Tell us how that all is playing out.
So, well, by the way, I just read earlier today that apparently the price for Greenland, if we were to actually buy it, would be $880 billion.
Do we have that?
Think about, why not?
It's rounded up to $1 trillion.
Right. Now you have a lot of Democrats saying, wow, just a little piece of that would take care of health care, a little piece of that would take care of education, a little piece of that, right? But if that kind of money, which would go onto the debt, goes to buy Greenland, I mean, listen, if it's going to happen, then that's probably the way to do it. Any kind of attack on Greenland, which is the other thing he talks about, even a Republican senator has said that will lead to his impeachment. Now, of course, my view on that is even if he got impeached, there still are not 2/3 in the Senate. In my view, you'd have the Democrats, but not enough Republicans who would remove him from office. Because you know what, eventually, by the time any of that would happen, you're another year and a half, whatever it is down the road, and then people say, well, we're nearing the end of his term. It was kind of the flavor of the last impeachment. It was so late, people said, let's just put this aside.
Have you noticed the president's been getting a lot of trophies and medals lately, and in Venezuela, the opposition leader got an audience with President Trump by presenting him with the Nobel Peace Prize that she had won.
You think she had an ulterior motive?
That seemed like it was a little price to pay.
Yeah, Maria Machado, she would like to be president of Venezuela. She won an election years ago, never was able to take power, and right now, with Maduro removed, the Trump administration basically is working with the rest of that regime not to remove them, but to keep, at least that's what it looks like. So yes, and we see the picture there. Machado came here and said, here, you're the one that really deserves this. There was questions whether President Trump would accept it. He did. And so now he's got his Nobel Prize, although the Nobel Committee came out the other day and said, let it be known, you cannot give it away. You cannot transfer the title. What you do with the money is up to you. All right, well, we'll see about that. I don't know. But anyway, the bottom line here is if he continues to work with the regime, now we're hearing that oil sales are actually happening and that tens of millions of dollars have been deposited in a bank in Qatar. And Trump has said he's going to control the oil money. I'm not going to raise any issues. I'm not saying anything questionable might happen, but I am saying why isn't it with like BMO, Chase? Why isn't it here with one of the banks here by putting it in Qatar where he has special relationships? Let's just say I don't know how we track what happens to that money. It would be useful if we could, and if that money was making money for people here in the United States and the banks.
I want to celebrate you. Your last show is this Sunday.
Yes.
What are some of your highlights? Can you talk about?
So as we think about, so Political Report for people just hearing about this, our last show will be on Sunday. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be around. I'm going to be with you on Fridays. I'm going to do what I do, which is provide political and legal analysis.
Darn it, I thought you were leaving.
No, I'm sorry, Mike, and I'll take you with me if I do. But for Political Report after 6 years, we're going to call it a day on that. And I think interviewing Lori Lightfoot on her way out the door when we met at a bar.
And had a little drink.
And that was real alcohol. I'm going to admit that. And we did that. That was sort of interesting. Being able to
have Jake Tapper. That was a good one, too.
Well, what was great about Tapper was because for his second book, he wasn't doing interviews outside of CNN. And I put the request in, and his people called and said he'll talk to you. So having these moments of being able to talk to people who sometimes would not talk perhaps to somebody else. You know, I'm not a reporter. That's not what I do. My role is different. I interview, we chat, we talk. So my relationships are different with a lot of these folks. And I have to look back at the show we did not all that long ago with Governor Pritzker at the Holocaust Museum.
Right.
So it wasn't meant to be a big political thing. It was really about
just a chat.
Anti-Semitism and what goes on, and I think important issues. So it's been a great opportunity for 6 years to be able to walk through all of these social issues.
Mike Quigley this Sunday.
And this Sunday, Mike Quigley will join me to talk about all what's going on in Chicago. And the fact that he's running for mayor, we'll see what happens.
Thank you. We'll see you next
Thank you, guys.
Friday.
I want to see you
Thanks
Friday.
a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.